All right, next up, we'll go ahead and create another section underneath this. But hopefully at this point, you're really understanding, what a design system actually is. So let's continue on. What we'll do is we're going to create a real light shade of our primary color as a background. So let's get our rectangle tool and we'll left click and drag. And we will get our background color here, except we're gonna tone it where it's gonna be very desaturated and quite light. Right around there. Now, that's one way of doing it freehand in this version of adjusting things, but if we take the original color again, we can just adjust only the saturation in all these other parameters right here if we want in the lightness. So for the lightness, we can increase this way up just with our keyboard arrow key to around, maybe we'll make it an even number, 90, and that would be acceptable as well. So now what we can do is we can add this to our colors. So we'll come out here, we'll choose this primary color, and this will be lightest, just to stick with the naming conventions. And so when we go back to our layers and choose colors, we're going to add one down here. Now, just so we could see the type, we'll make this black. Lightest right there. Okay, so it's working pretty well so far. And what we'll do now is maybe we'll create a couple cards. So this would be actual components as well. And let's bring back Shift Control 4, our grid. And maybe we'll just create two large cards here. We're gonna make these white. And Control Shift 4 to toggle that off. Let's just get a real quick icon here. It can be just a random icon. It doesn't really matter. And remember, when we create these components that might be used in different areas of our layout, you really want to make sure that they're flexible and you're using your constraints correctly and auto layout as well. So maybe there's just an icon at the top, and then we're going to have down here an area right here. So let's type in the same thing. Actually, let's just copy this type right here. And for this one, let's detach that. And maybe this will be the paragraph size. So this size right here, if we go to inspect, is 26. Let's do 20 for this. So let's detach that. We'll choose 20. And let's also center it and give it some white space here and move this up. All right, right there looks pretty good. And let's also use 4 for a border radius to keep it consistent with the button above. Now I know it's not the greatest looking card, but for now we're just focusing on the fact that this is a video about design systems. So let's say this is your card. Nothing wrong with it in and of itself. Let's take all three of the elements and let's add auto layout. And again, we'll come over here and center things. And now, of course, this can be any size for the most part. If we wanted to, we could also make adjustments here from fixed width to fill container if we wish. And also, let's see what happens here. There we go. So now it's a little bit more dynamic. And let's get Shift F4, make sure this is added correctly. At this point, we'll copy it, we'll delete it, we'll go to Assets, and we can have a card section. And because buttons, you might have a lot of different buttons, you could just replicate this frame over here, and we can name an entire frame just for cards, because you might have many of those as well. So we can call this cards. We'll delete that, delete this. Cards, standard, we will paste that in. Now, just so we can see the actual card, we can go back to our design. We'll copy that and we'll go back to our assets, send it back. All right, so something is happening here because our primary color is not showing up. So let's move this around to see what's happening here. Send it back. There we go. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but we lost it for a second. No problem though. So here's our standard card. It's not yet a component though. So we can create a component out of this, and we'll call this card. And we can have different iterations of our card, or variants rather, as well. You can have a card design perhaps that works on light colored backgrounds. So for instance, we can create a variant out of this. And for this one, let's create one that has a actual background, a shadow or a drop shadow. So we'll come out here, we'll add a new property, and we'll call this shadow, and it'll be a Boolean value, so true or false. This one's going to be false. This one will be true. And then we will add that effect down here. So drop shadow. For now, we're just gonna leave it as it is. And then we can show the card on a light color background. So we'll go to our assets, go to cards, drag that in, and make sure we toggle this on. So now we can see a very light variation, it being placed on the same color white background with a very subtle card. Now of course, because this is the original, if we adjust this one, it's going to affect all the instances in our design system, or in the layout rather. So if we want to make this a little bit larger of a blur, as you can see, it's affecting up here, but here as well, in any other areas and pages in your design. So that's why creating a design system with all of your master components, your main components, are inside the same area. It's very helpful because you're not sitting around there trying to search for different sections of your design for the main components to make the adjustments. So we could do for here maybe, let's do like 7 or 9, and then take the opacity down just a bit. And maybe the blur up even more to 30. So we have a big soft shadow right here. All right, very, very cool. So you could put a label here, standard, we could put this on with shadow. You can move things over. All right, and there we go. So if we go back to our design, we'll go to assets, we'll drag our card in. We don't want a shadow though for this one. And now we can replicate that and make any necessary adjustments to the type over here. And let's go ahead and hide the columns. Control-Shift-4. And there you go. As you can see, we've just created a very simple layout. But of course, when you're creating the design system as well, it adds quite a bit of work, but it definitely comes in handy and is very useful when you're dealing with a large project that's going to have multiple pages. So for the final project of this entire course, you'll see that when you create that design system, when you have multiple pages and you want to make changes though in the end, it becomes a very invaluable tool. And it's not just for that, it's for future use cases as well in terms of design, not just layouts as I said at the beginning, but also to any other type of design that may be suitable for that company.